This is Chapter 6, Part 3. If I don't get distracted again by phone calls and door knocking. Let me talk about, there's two different, the first one I talked to you about is value returning functions. Pretty straightforward with it. The one that we need to focus on in this chapter is the void function, which do not have a return type. But before we get too far with this thing, let me give you an analogy. It might be a kind of like a gruesome analogy with it, but let me give you this analogy. Think about the story. Imagine that you were to meet Dando at the alley, for example, right? And you are the assassin, for example. And this assassin your job is to take out Dando, kill Dando. And you come in and you meet Dando and you pull your gun and you shoot Dando. Dan's dead. One of them. And then later that evening you find out that Dando, it was in the news that he got some Nobel Prize or some award or something silly. And you said, how is that possible? Because you just killed him already. Well, you found out that you killed his clone. A person that looks like Dando, walks and speaks like Dando, but you just took out his clone. That's one scenario. The second scenario is the one I want to talk to you about is you meet Dando, but Dando this time sends you his his messenger, for example. And you talk to the messenger, and the messenger tells, this is where Dan lives. All right, he points at the house, the address of this where Dan lives. So you do something to him, to the messenger, but why? You think of the messenger is just a messenger. You don't want to kill the messenger with it. He just knows where Dando lives with it. So you track him down to his house with it. Okay, and the story stops there. Now let me give you this scenario. Imagine this. Imagine if what I like to do is if you go into a document, for example, open up a Word document. We do this all the time. You go into let's take this My Document folder that I have right here. Right. Let's go to Pictures, for example. Inside my pictures, I have all these strange pictures that you've probably seen. But let's go into some of the pictures that I know. Please disregard some of the strange pictures I have here. Let's take this picture, for example, all right, of what's going on here in this flood of this right here. And I go in and I take this picture, one of these pictures, like for example, Bike 5, and I do just right mouse click on it, and I would create a shortcut, okay, like we do always all the time. And here's my shortcut. Okay, here's this little shortcut, and I'm going to create the shortcut to my desktop. Here's my desktop. You saw that I dragged this to this thing. This first analogy that I'm doing to you, and the other one is I'm going to do is bike. I'm going to right mouse click on it, copy, and then I'm going to paste it out my desktop here as well. Okay, so two of the same pictures that I'm looking at. Imagine this is my int main. And what I've done is I've created a clone of myself, Bike 5. Bike 5's on the desktop. Same copy that I will click on that will take me to the same picture here. However, I can actually click on shortcut, and shortcut still takes me to that same picture with it. So what's the difference between this one and this one? This one is a copy of a 25 kilobyte of a picture that's already stored in my picture, and also this right here is 1 kilobyte of this picture here. Well, the analogy of the story that I just gave you, the first scenario is that if I went and I kill Dan, all right, or kill his picture like I just did right here, I can delete it. Versus something that is something like a shortcut, 1 kilobyte. The first scenario is that I have made a copy of a 25 kilobyte picture onto my desktop. Now I've taken up 50 kilobytes of this thing. You agree? Whereas if I create a shortcut of this thing, there's only 1 kilobyte versus to the address of this particular location, there's only one copy of 25 kilobytes of byte 5 in this file. This, if you understand that scenario that I just gave you, if you look at my definition going back to here, the void function, going back to memory management, is why we program. When you program memory management, when you do a void function and you copy that file, that memory, objects is what you're doing, to another location, that takes up memory. Whereas a value returning function only does is you sending in is the sending out there is the reference variable of the actual address of the memory. Okay, can you just put that in the background picture with it before we move forward with it? So as I go through this, we're going to look at void functions. Void functions. Before we leave void function, let me just wrap up some few things about value returning function. You need to know the name of your function. You know the parameters. You need to know the data types that you have, and you need to know the data types that you're returning in that. So, for example, I'm just going to fire up a notepad something we can talk about with in this. So let me just do this so you can see what I'm talking about. You can have some data type name. Let's say this is an int, and this is a sample of a function name, and then you have some sort of an argument that you put in here. Inside of this, you have between the curly bracket. This is what's called a function body between your curly brackets. This is your function header. This is your data type. Your all value returning starts with some sort of data type with a function name and some sort of formal parameter. So inside of this is where you have is called a formal parameter. It's passed here, or parameters, and in between your body is what you have is your actual parameter. All right. So what's the difference in this thing that I'm talking about? In a void function, you will start with the word void. Now inside of that, you will have different type of parameters that you will have. You have your formal parameters, and it's a data type, and your identifier. Same thing. You're going to have your actual parameter. In a void function, in a return function that you need to have the word return. So it will return something in here at the end of the day. Okay, that's very important. However, in a void function, you don't start out with that. You start with the word void, and you will have some formal parameter. I'm going to break down this, talk more detail about this thing. So, and the actual parameter with this thing. Now, excuse me.